Good evening and welcome to this week's edition of Special Assignment. My name is Aaron Muloisi. Tonight we visit our story on Ukuthwala. It's the disturbing trend in the Eastern Cape where girls as young as 14 years are kidnapped and forced into marriage with older men in the community. In our 2008 story, we showed you how this old custom have been abused by some men in the rural areas such as Lusikisiki. We returned to the province to find that this custom hasn't disappeared despite the efforts to criminalize and stigmatize by rights-based organizations. We also speak to young girls who have managed to escape from their forced marriages to men old enough to be their fathers or even grandfathers. This report by Asanda Magaqa and Shirley Stoll.
Taken by force, while those closest to her turn against her. Millions of young girls around the world are kidnapped every year and forced into marriages. This will be the fate of more than 100 million young women in the next decade. And back home, many teenage girls in rural areas will also not escape this fate.
By the time they turn 18, they already have 3 kids. That is why we take them while they are still young. It is nice because they are still pure.
While I was still waiting, 3 men came in and they took me.
We return to the Eastern Cape to see if the practice of Ukuthwala is still prevalent. Since our visit in 2008, not much development in these areas has taken place. The Eastern Cape is one of the poorest provinces in the country. Tradition plays a central role for residents here, and age-old customs are still practiced in this rural setting. It's a known fact that young women from this village are still being abducted and forced into arranged marriages. Some of the girls have since been rescued. We decided to go back and see for ourselves how they managed to escape this fate. It is here in Kwaqele, KwaHlabati and KwaKhanyayo villages where the highest number of Ukuthwala victims were rescued. It is also the place with the highest concentration of child brides. It would seem, therefore, that the end of the tar road further up the road also signifies the end to modernity, the end to the evolution of cultural practices which are patriarchal and even misogynistic, and a place where the equality between sexes is a myth.
In original customary law, an individual's consent was not important. It was the families that had to negotiate and find consensus between them. And then if the man's family and the woman's family reach consensus in the negotiation, the consensus covers all their inmates, including the woman.
Not far from the villages where the young women were abducted, the Palmerton Care Center has become a safe haven for them. The teenagers know that once they manage to flee from their husbands, this is where they can turn to. The center is funded by government and the private sector. About 300 children from displaced families now call this home. We spoke to Nolizwi, who told us how she was raped by the man who was to become her husband.
He stripped and was left in shorts. He came to me. I was in the corner. He told me I was his wife. I told him I want to go home. I told him I wanted to leave. He grabbed me and dragged me to bed. He told me I was his wife and that he had a right to sleep with me. I told him, "You are raping me now," and that I would report him. He said there was nothing the police would do because they know I must take a wife.
Fikile also stays at the center. She says she was tricked by her family into an arranged marriage.
My sister asked me to visit her. I met her in town with another man whom she said was my cousin. She then told me that the reason she had invited me was because she had found a husband for me, and my cousin would be my husband. I told her I didn't want to get married, and she told me I would do as I was told. I started crying.
For this young teenage girl, love had no place in a marital bed on her first night as a married woman. She tells of a horrific ordeal at the hands of the man she now had to call her husband.
They
said I should take off my clothes because I was no longer a girl. They gave me some clothes that would signify that I was a wife. When I refused to wear them, they made me wear them by force.
Soleka Kapa is the former mayor of the OR Tambo district municipality. She speaks to women from the area about their concerns around the ongoing practice of Ukuthwala. She says a shift in attitude about the role of women must still take place here.
Their strongest belief is that a woman is born to be married. They are not having any future in their own homes of origin. Theirs belong elsewhere. Hence, they are not worried about educating them because their belief is that, after all, I can't invest on a foreigner. I rather focus on my sons because they will take care of me, my family, and even my daughter will be taken care of by her husband.
Customs and tradition have kept a grip on the lives of many young women, fearing rejection from the community if they should challenge the status quo.
So if you go get married and then you leave your marriage, ulidikas. But that was used in the form of ukudikwa, to have enough. Udikwe ngumzi, dikwa mzi. But it ended up dikas. So they then thought that if I leave this marriage, I'm going to engage in promiscuity and be dikas. So they were actually very worried as mothers that if my child gets pregnant before marriage, she's going to be subjected to budikas.
After the break, it's still a man's world in rural South Africa. Discussing matters of importance. This often happens in the absence of women in these rural areas. According to their tradition, these men can decide who to marry, leaving negotiations up to the elders of the community. This stigmatizes anyone who doesn't toe the line.
It is not taken as rape when they have paid damages and bridal price. When a person has agreed to marry and finding that the person used to sleep around, you find that the person no longer has the chance to sleep around. You find that by the time she was at home, she had many boyfriends. Now she no longer has the chance to sleep around. She feels like she's in jail. She's being punished. Marriage makes you stop sleeping around.
Escaping arranged marriages here can be a long and difficult road. This is especially true for young teenage girls. But more and more women manage to negotiate their own way through cultural norms.
The rate is rather very low. For example, if we go to where the incidences were prevalent, you find that we have no incidents at all.
But despite the fact that democracy has opened up society for change, many women in South Africa still carry the burden of inequality between the sexes. We spoke to various worried mothers from this community who hope their daughters will have a brighter future than the one they had. Poverty and the daily struggle for survival is not a legacy they want to carry on to their children, and many mothers here warn their daughters against getting married too early.
It was too painful when I heard that the kids are being forced into marriage. Because I also don't want my child to get married. I want her to get a job and get to know her husband first.
I will never allow my child to get married at a young age because I also got married at a young age. Right now, education is important. I don't have a job because I never got a chance to learn. I won't allow her. She must first get an education.
In Africa, 4 out of every 10 women will be married before they turn 18. This will force many out of the school class and into the marital home. Daily family chores will take up much of their time. Boys from this community are taught from a very young age that it's acceptable to marry a girl that's much younger than them. Older men will marry girls who are still at school, some as much as 40 years their junior.
A woman is never a child. A 14-year-old is as old as an older person. We teach our sons that when they grow up, they must marry. Age doesn't matter in a marriage. Even if you are 19 and get married to a 60-year-old man, age is not an issue.
The age factor is important because marriage was always allowed when the woman had reached marriageable age. It did not matter whether the woman was, the negotiations were started in the proper manner or by the irregular procedure of Ukuthwala. The woman had to be of marriageable age, otherwise it is not a marriage procedure at all.
Despite their mother's fears, a lot of young girls in these villages will end up getting married early. For some of these teenagers, marrying for love will not be an option.
If you are very ugly and not attractive, you can get any best pretty woman because you simply go and choose and you send a team to bring that girl to you. So the point is, it was not based on love, but it was based on seeing that person, not knowing that person, but knowing that once she's my wife, she will do what I want her to do. She will bear children for me, she will cook for my family. That's all I need from her.
He told me to sit on top of the bed. I was crying and I didn't want to speak to him. He said he loves me. I must know that I'm a wife now. He said he'll provide everything for me.
But amid deep-seated poverty, the odds are stacked up against these young women. With very little skills and high unemployment rates, many will scrape by to survive. Some families are happy to marry off their young daughters, hoping that they will be taken care of.
Life is hard for people here at the village because there are no jobs. We don't find work. Even those who have studied look for a job for years and they just don't get hired. Jobs are scarce. Sometimes you find a situation where you no longer have a husband and you have to take care of the children on your own.
Another man was very vocal. He said that the poverty has made us to be greedy. We are just using this as a culture. It was not used in the manner it is done today. This is just greediness and selling your children.
After the break, what is life like now for the young women at Palmerton Care Centre? Dozens of young girls from surrounding villages have found refuge here at the Palmerton Care Centre. Here, they are being taken care of after escaping their forced marriages.
What I love here is that you get to concentrate on schoolwork. This was not going to be possible if I was at home. I would be doing something. My life is getting back on track. If they change the mayor or close this place, it'll be the end of my life.
We catch up with 16-year-old Pindi, who we also interviewed during our visit in 2008. She tells us she can now forget about the responsibilities of a grown woman that was forced onto her as a child bride.
I'm free now because I'm living like any other child. In the beginning, I thought I was different. It is nice here. I play, I eat what I like, and I go to school.
Pindi and other young women here are encouraged to think about how their own rights can be protected within their customs.
They teach us about how to feel dignified, our rights, how to treat ourselves and others. I want to be a social worker because I want to teach others about their human rights.
Nobahle Nzolo works as a counselor at the Palmerton Care Centre. She says the teenage girls who find their way here are traumatized by their forced marriages. Nobahle encourages them to talk about their ordeals.
In the beginning, they were depressed and they showed symptoms of depression and stress. But with those counseling sessions and those visits from the social workers, they have recovered a lot because you'll find that they are free to even express themselves. They express their feelings freely. They talk about this abduction freely.
The young women from Kwahlabati and Kwaxele who remain home must build their lives in line with the tradition that they are raised in. But community leaders here say there's also been a change in attitude around the custom of Ukuthwala.
The change of attitude, the behavioral change of the communities and families has shown us great improvement. For example, they know now that it is a violation of law. Because when one young girl was kidnapped, the families of the perpetrator were able to report the incidents to the police.
We no longer practice Ukuthwala because we respect the law. We wait for a person to reach the age of 18.
This slow shift in attitude has brought a welcome relief to the young women at the Palmerton Care Centre. They say this has given them the opportunity for a fresh start.
Mna into endiyinqwenelayo njengoba ndifunda ngoku.
My wish now is that I'm in school.
Ukuze nam ndincede abanye
I want to be a social worker.
nabantwana abahlelelekileyo
I want to help children,
ngenxa yokuba
like the one who ran away from her marital home.
ngenxa yokuba kusuke umntwana esihlala naye la
And I want this thing to be exposed.
nakho wabhaqwa ngumntu amameya
I don't want to see people suffer
ukuze
this
kuvele
way.
bakhona nabantwana abanjengathi.
I think their memories are becoming vivid in terms of what happened to them. And they are really, some of them have reached the closure about the bad situation and are able to focus in their studies. Surprising enough, even though those who are old for the classes they are in, because of delays, they don't seem ashamed of continuing with the education. We have made an attempt of saying, why don't we then change towards some skills development rather than formal education given the age. But they say they would want to be given an opportunity to grade 12. Then they can pursue skills development. But for now, they are still keen to be in the formal education sector.
Walking away from their forced marriages and finding a helping hand at the center, the hopes of these women for a brighter and better future have been renewed.
I am slowly forgetting about it. I am free here.
Well, that's it for this week. Join us again next week for more award-winning investigative journalism. And remember, we'll be broadcasting on Mondays at 9 during the next few weeks because of the Cricket World Cup. And also remember to send us your comments or even video clips to truth@sabc.co.za. Thank you for watching and good night.